And it was really fun to recognize those who have no rhythm at all. And how hard they worked, and they just couldn't get not only the footwork, but they couldn't quite get the dance. But as a pair, you could see the love that was there for both of them as they worked through those challenges of the unrhythmic characteristics of one of the spouses. You know, when you love someone, you're willing to work through the challenges of not being able to quite be in step all the time. Conflict is an opportunity. We don't always look at conflict as an opportunity. We look at conflict as something we want to stay away from. We look at conflict as something that, we need to shy away from any conflict or any arguments or any discussions that cause us to create a little bit of the blood rise in our lives, or the tension begin to mount up, or our veins in our neck begin to tighten up, or our voice gets louder. We believe that conflict is just too difficult. We would hardly consider it the idea of learning to dance. We're going to talk about the dance of conflict tonight, and how it really is an opportunity for us to show our love for God, first of all, and secondly, for us to discover the importance of our love for one another, and that love goes more deeply than I like or dislike you, or I like or dislike what you say. It goes to the depth of loving others because Christ first loved me. And so now I have a reason to love you, even though there might be some sort of conflict in our lives. Matthew 18:15 is the text that usually begins and deals with conflict. We're very familiar with it. We often use it as a form of church discipline, which one of these days in my lifetime will dispense with that harshness of church discipline and really talk about church loving. Be it as it may. Matthew 18:15 says, "If your friend sins against you, go and tell him or her his or her fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained a brother, or you have gained a friend." Those are great words. But you know what a dance destroyer is? A dance destroyer is assumptive gossip. You may not have heard that word or that phrase because I've actually coined it myself. And I figure I have the right to do that because I'm here standing in front of you, and if you don't like the word, then that's okay. English majors, please forgive me. I know that I'm not following good English here. But assumptive gossip is this. I remember in my early ministry, I had the privilege of being in Wyoming and serving in uranium mining towns. And the one mining town in which I served in had about 4,300 people. And they were all miners except for a few people that owned the stores around. And if I went into any store, you could pretty well rest assured that someone was there that I would know, or would at least know me. And I always went to the grocery store because I always looked forward to seeing who I would meet and who I would see, especially because they were not all members of the church, and our church became kind of that community church, that place where people came because they needed a place. So there was a time I went to a grocery store and I was in a hurry. Usually it took me, if I went to get one item, it would take me about an hour and a half. But I went to get one item. I was in a hurry. I was in and out. And the word got around that I was upset with someone in the church. And it so happened that someone from the church was in the store and saw me and knows that I'm always stopping and talking with people, but I did not talk with that person. So that person assumed that I was angry with them, or I didn't like them, or I just did not want to talk to them. And that message got around that I didn't like that person. And I wasn't willing to talk to that person. And I'm going, where did that come from? And it all came from an assumption, and therefore it was passed around as truth. And that's called assumptive gossip. Isn't it amazing how we can see something and we can assume that someone has acted a certain way or said a certain thing because? Have you ever had that word on there after you've talked about something or seen someone? They did that because. And the moment we start whispering or telling someone that I know that that person did this because, I am now in the process of assumptive gossip. Assumptive gossip does not cure conflict. It only increases it. Assumptive gossip is also a result of a failure to confront. You see, that's another ugly word. We don't like that word because when we think of confronting, we think of getting face to face with someone and being awfully gnarly with them. And we really don't want to do that. And when we think of being confrontive, we also think of the fact that we often deliver confrontation poorly. When we confront someone, we're not so good at dealing with the issue or the concern or the problem that we might be having with them or that we might see in them. By the way, in that text, when it talks about a brother or friend sinning against you, it may not be that they're actually doing something against you, but when they are part of doing something that hurts the church or hurts them or hurts those you love or hurts you in particular, then it's something that does need confronted, and it may be that you're the one that's called for to confront, and yet you go, I'm not really good at this confrontational stuff. Why don't we let someone else do it? And suddenly we discover no one feels good about it. And even if we perceive that we've confronted well, we end up discovering that we're received badly. Have you ever done your best to let someone know that you really love them and you're really concerned about what they're doing and how they're behaving or what's going on in their life, and you've done all the stuff you felt like you needed to do? You spoke kind words, you upgraded them, you said things nice about them, you said all those things that they needed to hear about them, and then when you came in with the kicker, they go, It's like, what must I do to make it possible for you to know that I'm just trying to confront an issue here and make life better? You see, confrontation is no fun. And that's why sometimes we back up into assumptive gossip. Because it seems like it's so much easier just to assume and tell everybody else instead of deal with the hard work of confrontation. I'd like to share with you some danced out sheep. You know, before Matthew 18, verse 15, the text that Matthew puts in his gospel is the text of the lost sheep. Matthew 18, verse 12 reads as follows. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go in search of the one that went astray? Now we read that and we go, that's so nice. The guy with 99 sheep leaves the 99, goes after the one that's astray. What does astray mean? That means it's a sheep that's wandering off. It's a sheep that's going where it should not go. It's a sheep that should not be doing what it is doing. It's a sheep that needs confronted. There's a reason why that's before Matthew 18. It's because no matter what sheep may be wandering off, may need confronted, there's the calling to leave the 99 that are, handling life pretty well and go and confront that sheep that is off the mark. That's probably all danced out, feeling like they don't belong to the dance. Maybe even feeling unloved. Maybe because of their feeling of unloved, they're doing some very unloving things. What was it that Billy Graham's wife said about her children when asked, which one do you love the most? You recall? The one who needs love the most, right? And the one that needs the love most is usually the one that's wandering off. More about danced out sheep. Galatians 6, verse 1 to 2 reads as follows. Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgressions, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. You see, that's the key to confrontation, is that sense of gentleness, that sense of being careful that we're not doing something to really let a person have it and point the finger at them, but we're really attempting to show a greater love to them because we want them to be a part of the community which they're a part of, but they're wandering off. We want to communicate a sense of gentleness for two reasons. We desire that they know we love them, and we're also very much aware that we are just as easily tempted to go astray and do the things that we're pointing the finger at that person for doing. I'm just as likely to gossip as anyone else. I'm just as likely to say some bad things about someone as anyone else. I'm just as likely to fail in aspects of life and ministry as someone else. So to act as though I have a higher spiritual calling than anyone else, and therefore you have to listen to me, is not very gentle, nor is it very appropriate. Because we're all right here together, called upon to recognize that there's times when we need to say to one another, what you're doing and how you're behaving and how you're acting is not in line with what Christ wants us to be. And when we fulfill the law of Christ, there's only one law of Christ, and that is to love the Lord, well, two laws. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because confrontation done in that kind of love is powerful. So do you care to dance? Let's talk about how we do that. We're going to use the 3 C's. The 3 C's is, first of all, collaboration. To collaborate means to sit down and begin the conversation. Can you imagine what would have happened between David and Nathan if Nathan would have gone up to David and said, David, you're a rotten king. I've never met anybody so bad as you. You think you're going to call yourself a king when you've done the things you've done? How long would Nathan last as a prophet in David's kingdom? Not very long. What we may not know about David is David was really good at handling his enemies. They didn't last very long in his kingdom. Or if they didn't, like he left word with Solomon, he told Solomon, you know, Solomon, there's a few people that I didn't take care of, you take care of them. Nathan would not have lasted long if he would have treated David with a non-gentle expression. But instead, he collaborated. He talked with David. David, I got a story for you. You know, the best way to confront is to collaborate, is to talk, is to have conversation. And within the framework of conversation, learn how to communicate those things that need to be communicated in a way that shows love. Now, we're not always able to do that. Please understand that. We're not always able to do that. Sometimes we just flat out have to say, there's something wrong here and we need to fix it. But in most cases, if we take time to talk, we'll be able to find a way to express what needs to be spoken in a gentle, loving way. We need to be able to compromise. We need to understand that sometimes there's things that I need to know in relation to what I'm coming with that I have failures too. And so I'm not completely right. I need to give in some as that other person gives in. I need to be able to care enough that I don't go into a situation of confrontation wanting completely my way. Because I have to realize that maybe my way is not the complete best way, and what I'm really searching for may need compromise from both of us. And then capitulation. Capitulation is sometimes we just have to give it up. Sometimes, have you ever confronted someone with a problem and discovered that it wasn't them, it was you? I know that never happens to you. Well, it happens to me. Sometimes more often than I wish it would, than I think it should. That didn't come out right, did it? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. You know, those times when you suddenly realize that what you're pointing the finger at that other person, really, they're not at fault. I am. And when we do that, we're almost like, uh-oh, how am I going to back out of this thing nice and easy? Instead of being able to go, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I have failed you. Boy, aren't those words difficult? Please forgive me. I have failed you. You see, we can say those words in the process of compromise and collaboration, because in the process of relationships, when we love each other and we collaborate and start talking, we discover that, wow, we each can say to one another, please forgive me, I have failed you. What a change in relationship when that happens, is that's when we begin to dance. I've had my confirmation class go through a conflict class each year, and I have them demonstrate this dance where compromise, they hold hands and they come together. And in capitulation, well, they step back. In capitulation, one goes all the way to the other. And then collaboration, they just take turns going back and forth. And then we ask, who's providing the music? And the music for our dance, the music for the dance of conflict resolution, of confrontation, is Jesus Christ. We're dancing. Matthew 15b says, if he listens to you, you have gained your friend. You have gained your friend for what? Oftentimes we read that and we read, you have gained a friend, but you have gained your friend for salvation. See, we're not just talking about making sure that we like each other and we hug each other and we love each other this way, in a sense of a romantic kind of love. We are talking about the kind of love that says, I care deeply about your soul, and I want you to care deeply about my soul. And what we're all about is resolving any conflict in our life and confronting that conflict in our lives so we can all be grasping each other with the arms and the love of Christ. Because Jesus never takes his arms off of us. Never. When we were baptized as infants, there was a promise that Jesus made to us. He said, I will love you always, even unto the end of the age. Jesus does not take his arms off of us. He doesn't wag his finger at us and say, you rotten little boy, or you rotten little girl, or you dirty human being. I'm mad at you and I'm not going to be with you anymore. And he doesn't take his arms off and walk away. He keeps his arms around us and he says gently, you are failing, you are leaving me, you're going in a direction that is apart from where I'm guiding you. Don't rush out of my arms. Don't run away. Because that's why I went to the cross. And that's why I went to the grave. So that in rising from the grave, you would know I have the power to love you, and I always will. And I want you to love one another. Conflict is no fun. Confrontation is challenging. But it's a great way in which we can show each other and the world around us that God's plan for us is greater than our own thinking, our own purposes, and our own wills. Because we want everyone to know the love of Christ in every circumstance of life. God grant that for Jesus' sake. Amen.